So, E3 is over, and this is the most information we'll have on Dark Souls 2 for a while. So watch this video if you want an idea of what Dark Souls 2 is shaping up to be. If at any point you're not interested in what I'm talking about, just check the description and skip ahead to something more interesting. So the demos at E3 were difficult. Really difficult. Like, only one journalist defeated the boss tier difficult. Journalists got to choose from a selection of class types: warrior, sorcerer, temple knight, and a dual swordsman. So they played through a single stretch of the game, leading towards the Mirror Knight boss. Some people played for a couple of hours, and only one guy defeated the Mirror Knight. Although this could be just a tribute to how bad some journalists are at video games. Anyway, I mentioned warping, and warping between lit bonfires is now available from the start of the game. This is to reduce some of the tedium that people complained about, so to sort of trim some of the fat. But don't worry, devs made it clear that this is where the accessibility stops. And it's been great to read some of the experiences that came out of E3. One journalist speaks of how he rushed past some apparently dead enemies, which came to life as he was further in the level and ambushed him. Another praises the level design where you can funnel multiple enemies into a tight corridor, but if you get pushed too far back you get trapped. It's the Souls game we know and love. So, the boss at the end of the level, the Mirror Knight. He looks like one hell of a challenge, and the most interesting aspect of this fight happens when he slams down his shield, giving you the opportunity to either deal damage to him or to shatter his shield, and if you don't shatter his shield, an NPC will burst out and fight you as well. If you're playing in online mode, the character will be a real player, who's been summoned prior to the fight and waiting to come into your fight. And I'm so hyped for that, like, maybe summoned players will be able to witness the fight as they wait for their chance to break out of the shield. That's a cool thought. The Mirror Knight stands at about the halfway point in the game, so that might give you an idea of the difficulty curve. It's interesting to note that, in an interview with Polygon, the game's director said that he was confused by the fears of the North American and European audience, and he didn't really understand them. He has continually repeated his goal to improve the features that are at the core of the Souls game, and one of those things is enemy AI, so let's talk about that. In the demo, many enemies convincingly fake death. They wait for you to pass before waking up, and they don't make a whole lot of noise about it. And this is the sort of trick you'd expect from a Souls game. But while this new behavior is interesting, there seems to be more of a broader, subtler change to enemy AI that makes me more excited, so this was reported by a few testers. Simply put, enemies seem smarter. They no longer just rush you initially, and a few people made it sound like they size you up, just like you sort of size them up when you learn how they behave. Moves that were once easy to engage and sidestep are no longer as easy. A lunge attack, for example, will adjust with your movement and track your sidestep. Gone are the days of the easy backstab, since enemies will pivot and track your movement much faster. So this is great, because backstabs were always a really sort of fail-safe way of taking out humanoid enemies in Dark Souls, so it's great to see that gimped a little bit. Testers also noticed that enemies made better use of their dodge ability. Now, I've mentioned a few times now that enemies are sort of really situationally aware, and this is a recurring theme. Enemies will push their advantage. A few playtesters noticed that once they sort of backed up to heal during a fight, that enemies wouldn't just keep their traditional pattern of play, like when you back up to heal against a hollow in Dark Souls, it won't pursue you any differently. Just like bosses like Gwyn will become more aggressive if you try to heal, enemies will now be able to sprint just like you, and if they see you fleeing to heal, they will run you down with intent. So speaking of healing, it seems like healing has also changed to suit the gameplay. If you played Demon Souls, you'd know that healing took a purely consumable form in that game. Healing items were everywhere, and you could theoretically farm a huge amount to spam if you were having trouble with a level. In Dark Souls, you go through an area with about 5 flasks if you're confident, but most people probably upped their flasks to about 10 if they were having trouble. Additional consumable items like humanity existed, but they were really valuable and they had other uses within the game, so spamming them or farming them wasn't really an option. In Dark Souls 2 we're seeing a merging of plentiful consumables and also limited Estus flasks, so Estus still exists, presumably in the same form as Dark Souls. However, many enemies drop life stones and radiant life stones, which can refill health while you walk, but they refill your health slowly. They will not save your life in a crucial moment the same way Estus or humanity would. So I was thinking, what might this mean for the balance of the game? Well, if you think about it, Estus sort of gave you a really controlled experience, like more of a do it right or start over because you wasted your flasks and didn't save enough for a boss. In Demon Souls you were more likely to die because you were overwhelmed in one fight, rather than because you ran out of consumable healing items, because, it was unlikely that you'd completely run out. In Dark Souls 2 we see a merging of the healing systems. Estus are for use during fights, and consumables will help you maintain your health between fights. You're less likely to die because you ran out of healing items, and more likely to die because you misjudged a combat situation, if that makes sense. So, to match my theory of taking more damage during fights and getting more healing between them, it sort of matches up with what we've seen from the gameplay, since there's this big focus on AI and tackling enemy interaction in a clever and really skillful way. In his experience with the game, Rurikhan noted that the combat felt heavy and intense, like every blow mattered, and if you fucked up, if you were hit, it was really hard to recover, especially if there were multiple enemies. He also noticed that there was really a lot more chip damage over time. So, like I said earlier, to match the new healing system, it sounds like mistakes will punish you more, and that you'll be taking a lot more consistent damage. You'll be more likely to die in the short term because of a serious combat mistake, or a series of combat mistakes, rather than die in the long term because you kept chugging Estus and kept tanking hits until you ran out of healing items. So you're less likely to die like that in the long term. So anyway, click here for part 2, where I go on to talk about the new classes like the Dual Swordsman, how dodging and backstabs are no longer the same, how the torch no longer blocks 100% physical damage, and also how there's no Games for Windows Live logo on the website. Awesome. Oh yeah, and leave a like if you enjoyed this video. Cheers guys, I'll see you next time.